Hello, everyone,
Good morning, everyone.
and welcome to another delightful and exciting episode of the Artcraft Q&A for Crowfall. Where are we at, Blair?
We are at February 2021, which is going to be, and in development terms, February always evaporates like no other month. It
The
feels like
lack of like an extra day or two is enough, right?
it's just so weird. It always feels like February starts and then your milestone's over and you're like, the hell, what happened?
Yeah, this is a bit of a weird one for us too, right? Because we actually just got a version out to 6400, and it's probably our largest update that we've ever done, which we've had a number of those, but this one, I guess they have to get bigger to keep having largest updates ever. So we just had that hit. It's on test right now. It hasn't yet gone live. So today we're going to be spending some time talking about the build that just went live and the stuff that's in there and explaining some of the reasons behind why things are the way they are and highlighting some of the things you guys might not have noticed. And of course, we have people tuning in that haven't seen it because they wait till it goes live. So for them, some of it will be entirely new. So it's a bit of an odd time one, right? As usually we don't do one right after a build goes to test server.
So basically we've seen about 200, 300 bugs come in from you guys off of tests, and we really appreciate that. I mean, those are what we're actually working against, along with the stuff we already knew about. So super helpful when you guys are beating up tests and letting us know what's wrong with a new build before we get it up to the live service.
And yeah, I think I was talking to Bill about this earlier this week. I think that we will close out in the course of a milestone something on the order of 2 or 3 thousand bugs, right? Like it's a pretty high number.
Yeah, it
Um,
is a huge number.
and some of those are actually giant glaring issues, and others are just like, hey, for some reason in this outpost over here, this treasure chest is spawning inside this bush, and it wasn't. It's just too bad spawner locations. There's a ton of that stuff as well, and we just kind of sweep through and fix that in massive chunks. So there's a whole bunch of that stuff that happens every day, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of people ask for all these new features, and there was somebody was asking for some stuff in the EK, and I'm like, there's just a pile of stuff we need to fix for the EK, and it's stuff like when you place a fence, it always places to the left. Well, it's going to take an engineer an hour to go in there and figure out what's going on and make
Best
it
case,
place
yeah,
right.
for sure.
Right? There's hundreds of those, and none of them specifically improve the experience 10x, but all of them getting fixed in mass, it just feels more polished.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
It just feels better overall. And the team fixes so many of those every day, which is generally I think 6400 is one of our best feeling. I mean, it is probably our biggest and best milestone to date.
Yeah, for sure. In
Just
terms of quality of life features, little things too that that aren't big ticket items like the G to loot all. Now you get a little widget in the corner that tells you here's what you got, so you don't have to stop and open your inventory. Like I was surprised at that one little feature, how much it improved the overall play experience, right? It just feels better. But but that doesn't get mentioned on the forums. Nobody's like sitting there calling out, guys, I'm really disappointed that you haven't done this feature where I can actually see what items I've retrieved off a corpse easier without having to open my inventory. It is a giant quality of life thing, but it's not a marquee, it's not a ticket item, so big ticket item. So I'm glad that we're finally getting to a bunch of that stuff, and those things they do add up for sure. Little features like that, and tons of little bugs and little timing issues. Like I saw one that came through the system just when I'm in the lobby and I mouse over my character portrait, how long do I have to sit in one spot before the pop up comes up, right? And it's actually a very delicate thing. It felt weird being too fast, so we slowed it down, and then it felt weird being too slow, so we had to go in again and kind of adjust it. There's a lot of stuff like that that's just you know it when you feel it, and so there's a whole bunch of that kind of stuff. What you'll see between now and launch also is more and more of that being addressed because we have to. I mean, ultimately, we could continue just slamming in new features forever, but at some point, you actually have to slow down and deal with all those quality of life issues, or you won't have a successful game. So you will see us shifting more and more of our effort to that stuff, and there is a payoff there. I know it doesn't seem like it because it's not exciting to talk about, but when you get in and feel it, then it certainly is worth it, in my opinion. And the market
yeah,
has shown that too.
and I think that you'd mentioned it in one of our in one of our meetings where we're starting to make things that were previously inscrutable scrutable,
Yes, for sure.
right?
Absolutely.
It's just deep stuff like the combinations in a recipe for one that has multiple outcomes. That is just, you don't know that even exists if you go through the
Yeah, for
crafting
sure.
system first time, right? And
Yeah.
now we've got a little hover over there where we're polishing it up and we're adding data. It's not all going to go in 6400, but at least now there's a way to see that. So yeah, we're
Well,
just
there's always a two-step process, right? Is once we get the UI in that actually is capable of showing you that information, then we get that in, we get it polished, and then the next step is now go fill in all the data, right? You've seen that numerous times, right? Powers is a great example. The Crowpedia is one where we did both at the same time. Like we got the systems online, and then we just waited the extra milestone before putting in the game to where we had a chance to fill out all the data. But that's a great, I mean, the Crowpedia is a great example of one. And for those of you who don't know, the Crowpedia is a thing that we put in. It's almost like a little wiki inside the game. We have so many different race and class and subclass or discipline combinations that it really is impossible to keep it all in your head at one time. I'm sure we have a couple players who can do it. I can't do it because there's just so many combinations, and they all have different powers, and they all have different talent trees. And so the build optimization game is a key part of what makes our game different and unique. I think we go further in that than probably any game since Shadowbane, frankly, in terms of allowing you to customize your powers and your traits and all that. But it was very, very hard to maneuver that. Like all the information was not in one place at one time. In fact, to get it, you'd almost have to have different characters made and jump between them through the lobby to be able to pull up their talent trees to actually browse that stuff, or run around to different vendors and mouse over the stuff. So now we actually have that all in one place. So you can go in and say, you know what, I really want to try and angle my character towards this tunneling discipline or tunneling power. How am I going to get there? Like, what are the ways I can get there? That's a bad example since it's so Ganetian focused, but you can actually say, I specifically want to make a character who has some archery, but also is very tanky, or some character who's really really geared towards being able to hit crit strike as often and as hard as possible. Now we have the ability to do that for the first time, which is really really cool. There's a lot of game system there, but you didn't really know that before because we didn't
right.
surface it. You know, yeah. So the answer for so long would Gordon says this all the time in meetings. So well, how would the player know that? And the answer was they go to the forums, or they ask their guildmates,
Or they watch a YouTube video.
or they go watch a dev Q&A from a year and a half ago. I mean, that's just none of those are realistic answers. So I'm glad that we're finally getting to the point now. Crowpedia is one part of that, but we have more that are coming as well.
We had mentioned the rewards last time for the creators of the year, and we have 4 winners today, and we're going to save creator of the year for last. Our first award that we're going to be looking at is Crow Spirit of the Year. This goes to the creator who kept the community engaged, informed, passionate, and never bored throughout the year. Our 3 nominees are Dilbo Baggins, Dicey23, and Communist Puppy. Does anybody want to do a drum roll? Do we have a?
No, I don't think we do. You're just supposed to open the thing and announce who it is to the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the winner is Dilbo Baggins. Yay, Dilbo.
So cool. All right.
Yes. All right. He gets the Crow Spirit of the Year. Yeah. My man. Someone's doing the chat. Okay. Our second award goes to War Story of the Year. Now, we've been doing the War Stories for a long time, and it's definitely, as a developer, fun to look back and just see how awful some of our things looked in the past. And you guys still played it and made videos of it. And we're infinitely thankful of that. And just watching the quality level improve of stuff that we've put in every milestone, and it reflects in the War Stories, which is great. And there's some things I look at, I'm like, man, I still don't like that UI piece. But you guys do a great job of coming up with these War Stories. And our nominees are the Kalanos. And please excuse me if I get any names mispronounced, but that might happen. Burza Hacks and Creme de la Creme 1. And our winner of the year is the Kalanos. Huzzah! Confetti! Should brought some confetti to throw.
That's awesome.
All that stuff.
I assume that links of those war stories, all of the nominees will be available somewhere, right? I assume that we'll put them out so people can check out their war stories.
Yeah.
So somebody make that happen.
They're all on our forums.
There you go.
Todd has this superpower, in case everybody doesn't know, where he can just say, "Hey, you know what? There should be this thing," and then magically it shows up in a couple months or weeks or whatever.
Or it doesn't. I would say it's not necessarily the most predictable and superpower. And sometimes it shows up, and sometimes something I didn't ask for shows up. And sometimes I have to remind everybody what happened to that thing, and everybody looks around like you never said that.
Yeah, there are definitely some of those. I'll go into stories at some other point about Todd's superpower, but there's definitely some funnies there. All right, we're going to go for our third award. This is for Sentinel of the Year. This goes to the creator who throughout the year provided consistently outstanding guides, gameplay tips, and coaching for new and veteran players. And this one is super important because it helps new people in the community. It points out things that features we put in that probably were inscrutable, that people didn't know about, that were made.
Oh yeah, this is one of those angles I was just talking about of the how the hell do I know how this thing works? Well, right. You go to somebody else's YouTube channel. That's the answer.
Right. So that again, this one is super important. Hopefully, we're taking some of the pressure off these guys by adding in game systems that show those elements. But you guys always come up with the great angles and the deep min-maxing. So our nominees for this are Stormsteel, Nagati, and Umix. And the winner of the year for Sentinel of the Year is Stormsteel.
Yeah, yay.
Yay! Oh, hey, you know what? I could use all of our cards as confetti. Yay! They didn't kind of break apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So our fourth and final award, which is Creator of the Year. And this goes to the person who consistently created content that was considered outstanding and hit the quality bar for our community, which kind of hits on all of the notes. And the nominees for this one are Captain Slashin. He does eat jalapenos for everyone. Session and Crusader W. And the winner? Oh, wow. Debbie Sue put a pause in here. Before I tell you the winner, I would be remiss if I did not say thank you for the community for coming out and showing so much support for these awesome creators. Clearly, they wouldn't be streaming without an audience, and you guys show up, obviously, because you want to get your Crowfall fix, which is fantastic. And the winner of the year is Crusader W.
Very cool. Yeah, I love W Sue paused it like they do with the Academy Awards because they're like, because the moment we announce the winner, everybody's going to tune out. So you got to get it in beforehand. That's great. Don't tune out. Stick around. So that's really cool. So so I do want to personally, I want to throw out a thank you as well to all the guys, everybody out there who you guys have been tireless in creating war stories and streaming us and helping get the word out. And ultimately, this game was made to be your game, right? This game was not made to showcase, quest writing skills on our behalf and stuff like that. I like our lore. I think it's cool, but that's not the focus of this game, right? The focus of this game has always been about you, the players. So thank you for jumping on this stuff early. I mean, you've been doing this for a game that hasn't been launched. That's pretty impressive that you're passionate enough and diligent enough to actually do it. And so just as a thank you from me and from Gordon and from the rest of the team, thanks for doing it. And, we hope that it all pays off in the long run because you guys got in early. And I hope that as we grow, your audience grows as well.
Yeah, and we can put up the winner slide because the winners all get stuff from us. The Creator of the Year receives the 1-year VIP subscription courtesy of Ace. All other category winners receive 3-month VIP subscriptions courtesy of Artcraft Entertainment. And there is one more special reward that we hemmed and hawed about and figured out what we could do for you guys, which is the exclusive hero statue for the EKs. Only you all will have this thing. It will be an account entitlement. You guys will be able to claim it from the entitlement page. This statue is designed for the creators with a gold and marble texture, and it's about 2 times the size of a normal character. You guys earned it. It will look good in your kingdoms. I hope you all appreciate it. And as always, our art team does a bang up job with the art assets. Cool. Congrats, everybody. So now we can move on to the 6400 stuff. We started talking about it at the beginning of the stream. We are going to just kind of high level some of this stuff. You know, what's funny is I've been watching streamers over the weekend and all, and there were some things that a lot of people didn't know about, like control right click now to quickly buy from vendors.
Yeah, or sell for sure. Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden, who was I watching? I was watching Galvia, I believe, because he was just doing it the old way, and then somebody mentioned it in the stream, and it was like, "Holy crap, this is so much faster!" It's like,
for sure. Yeah, I actually I don't know if this one's on our list or not, but I realized last time we forgot to mention bind to statue, right? Like that's actually a pretty significant feature. Is now you can when you take over a fort, you can actually or take over a keep, you can go up and you can bind to the statue, and it sets your recall location. And then if you lose it, then you fall back to the temple. Like that's something that we've wanted for years, and we just finally got it in. And I was while it was exciting to finally get it, I forgot. Like last time in the Q&A, we didn't even mention it. So there's a handful of things like that. That's what happens when you get a build, I guess, that's as big as this one. So that's in. Test it out. Let us know how it's working in on the test server.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that one too. It just kind of
another thing.
Okay, the attribute system went in 6400. I've been hearing positive results from that. We're pretty happy with it. Still tuning. Players seem to really have a choice now between you're able to get your primary stat pretty quickly, which was our goal from the design side of the house, which meant that then you would have to pick between continuing to dive into damage or going more durable by picking Constitution. Or there's also a mix in there. Like it's not always the extreme. Sometimes it's a mix. In a lot of cases, it's going to be on your healers what they feel comfortable healing at, right? So if everybody is super glassy, your healers may not be able to keep you up. So hopefully over time they will basically say, hey, don't go all glassy because I won't be able to keep you up in certain environments. Or for different types of engagements, you might want to have a slightly different build, right? I mean, that's it too. You may want something different in Siege. You may want something if you're out in the world just kind of wandering about, or if you're in a small group. So there you go.
And yeah, so I will say, you know, I'm glad that we got this done. It's not by no means do I consider it locked. Like we're now, you know, it's in front of you guys for the first time, so we need to get your feedback. You know, as you're putting points into con versus spirit versus int versus whatever else. You know, are you getting? Is it getting to be a hard choice? Right? We kind of figured that you would take your primary attribute all the way to max. That's kind of we expected that will be what 95% of the players will do. So the real question comes after that: where are you going to spend those remaining points? And you know, our goal was to make it a hard choice to where you want everything, but you can't have everything. So that's where choices and differentiation comes from.
We got vessel progression in, which sadly everyone's bypassing on test because nobody's playing it organically.
Yeah,
Also,
for sure.
we don't have the dregs up yet. The big thing that was a surprise to everybody in the streams I was in was people didn't realize that you now must be equal to the level of the NPC that you're fighting to gain XP. Equal, or the NPC can be higher. Either of those two conditions. Same with sacrifice loot. The sacrifice stuff that you are sacking must be of the vessel quality or higher, which is going to ultimately this is going to push people into the dregs. Right.
And actually, so yeah, let me comment on the pushing people in the dregs. The other thing that people may not have realized yet is that we put a much harder lines on infected and what you can get there now, right? Like before this, you know, it was a little murky what the loot rules were. So, you know, there were situations where we had people who we really wanted to be in dregs and they're playing in the infected because it's the safer, easier place to go. So we just put hard rules in place that it's like, all right, well, you can't get anything better than blue. Sorry. So if you want to now, you're going to have to move on to the next world. So that should go a lot, go a pretty good distance into what we are trying to get, which is players going where we expect them to go. More deterministic user flow across the entire kind of Crowfall universe.
Okay. The expanded new player experience. The journey's now complete. Um, and yeah, that's the new player experience. Wyatt had to go in there and change a bunch of things because we have changed a bunch of things.
Yeah, for
Anytime you
sure.
build a tutorial before the game is finished, this is going to happen. You
So
can
there's one
guarantee.
thing that's still outstanding that we need to address. I'll say on that real quick is from that player flow standpoint, right? For first character into the game, we want you to go through God's Reach because really it bounces you against every system, so that you have some idea what the kind of breadth of okay, at least now I have an idea what a mother load is. I know what crafting is about. I know what harvesting is about. I know how caravan animals work. After you've been through that once, though, I really don't want you to have to go through that same set of quests for your second character, your third character, your fifth character, your eighth character. So we've rebuilt that level 1 to 18 experience. 15 to 18 is kind of where you end up at the end of God's Reach. We've rebuilt that in the Infected. However, it's not balanced accurately yet, so it's still better in terms of efficiency to go through God's Reach. So we will be adjusting and fixing that because that was not the goal. Is I really don't want people being enticed to go back to God's Reach. God's Reach was supposed to be something you go through once. Now you've got it. You only go back there if you feel like you wanted to, basically relearn something. Like if you breezed through it and missed a point and you feel like it's important. Generally speaking, I don't expect people to go back there, and I don't want them to. So that is one thing that's not fixed yet in this version. The bones of it are there. Like if you go to the Infected, the Temple Zone does have monsters that allow you to do that. To have that leveling portion of the leveling curve, but it's not optimized right now, so there's no reason not to go to God's Reach. So that's something we need to fix.
I
So
think
it's
we
coming.
have some.
It's on the list.
I think we have some infected slides to show the new flow. If we could get those up, please, Emily. But basically, you can see now where the flow goes. We went very left to right on this one with the temples into. Internally, we have names for these, and it's basically this area is the most protected. This area has a little bit of protection, and this area has no protection. And the protection comes in the form of debuff you give to players of the opposing factions that come into your area, as well as we've gated the types of rewards that you can get from each of those bands.
Yeah, so the goal here is this is a training grounds, right, for all the siege mechanics, for all the capture and siege mechanics, right? So God's Reach gets you through the core RPG elements, but it doesn't teach you how an outpost works or why you might want to take one. It doesn't teach you about forts. It doesn't teach you about keeps. So we put this on a graduated curve for basically the upper 15 levels of the game. So really, it's kind of starting at around 18th level or 19th level. From there until 30, it's graduated layers of here's where you can level. You get a little bit of level. It's a little bit more risky, and in this one you're going to learn about outposts and forts. Then you go to the next one, it's like, all right, now it's a little more risky, the levels have gone up yet again, and now you're going to learn about keeps. And then eventually it's okay, so this final world is the most risky, and it's where you're going to learn about castles. So we kind of basically put this up as a continuation of that God's Reach experience to teach you now about the strategy game, and then it's kind of a preparation for you to move on to dregs or whatever other rule set we put up.
Okay, so let's talk about the Crowpedia. The Crowpedia is, let's put up the slide so everyone knows how to get to it in case you haven't found it yet.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier. So if I'd have known that we had big slides on it, I should have remembered that. I just forgot. Then I would have held off. But that's fine. Let's refresh a little bit because now we've got slides to back it up.
Yeah, in the upper, in your talent tree in the upper right, there's a big giant button that says Crowpedia. If you hover over an empty discipline slot, or if you're looking at an equipped discipline, you can also shortcut to the Crowpedia by either pressing the G key or clicking this button. And then it blows into all of these fun things that you would want to know. What we show the top end disciplines, we show all legendary quality because we have to show one, and this enables you guys to min max as best as possible as you're going through this thing.
Yeah, so the key that I wanted to get out of that, right, is I wanted the database to be, I wanted the process of making a build to be both bottoms up and tops down. So the way I think about that is you have this massive tree of combinations, right, where you can take this race and this class, and because I took this race, it opens up the ability for me to take this major discipline, but maybe I don't want to get that discipline. I want agent provocure, right? I want to go and specifically get that one. Well, how am I going to get there? And so the answer can be through my talent trees, I do it, or my answer can be, well, I want to go specifically after a race that gives it to me automatically. So I like the idea of either I start with my race and I say what is possible for me to build, and I go bottoms up, or I go top down. I say, hey, I really like the idea of having a character that's really slippery, right? I want to make a character who's all about mobility and high crit strike. Okay, well, if that's the case, here are some powers that I want. What disciplines would I have to take, or talents would I have, talent trees would I have to have access to be able to get those? What domains would those be sorted into? And how do I drill that all the way down to make an optimized build? So what I like about having an approach that lets you go bottoms up and tops down and top down is because you can then wander through the trees, right? You'll start going up in a direction with a destination in mind, and then as you're going up, you'll find this other thing over here that you hadn't considered, and now you're thinking, oh, well, that's actually pretty interesting, can I work that into this build? And then before you know it, your destination is shifted, and so you can kind of wander around in the tree, coming up with really interesting character builds. That was the goal anyway, and I think we're certainly much closer to it than we've ever been in the past. We still have some additional tweaks we want to make in terms of what things go where. I know we have additional powers coming. I think you're in fact going to mention that in a bit here, right?
Yep. Yeah, we've got some powers in 6400. And
So so but that the general approach I think is solid, right? That only works though if you have a wide tree for people to actually explore.
yeah, and we will continue to add things to. I mean, that's content moving forward, right? I mean, always going to be trying giving you guys some more stuff, more domain options. I mean, it's just more content that we have to build. Okay, I already mentioned the new chapter of the MPE stuff and emotes. Okay, so now you can taunt your frenemies, bow to your friends, and intimidate your enemies with style. Typing /emote help in game in the chat will show you the commands, and /emote list will print out all the emotes active on your account. Remember, there are a bunch of reward emotes specifically given out for the our backer appreciation stuff. What is that called? Is it backer appreciation?
Yeah, it's backer appreciation rewards, but we'll give them out for other reasons too, right? I'm sure that we're going to have events where we give them out. I'm sure we're going to have we basically built the system to be extensible, where we can add new ones and toggle them on as we do things in the future. So
and we can basically, we got a great system for entitling an account, so your account can be flagged to have the special thing, and in game will know about it, and you can play that if you have the account entitlement. So if someone tells you to do an emote, it may be an emote that only they have and you don't have yet. So that may be a reason why it's not playing. But you can check it out if you use the emote list to see everything your account is entitled to. So yeah, that's a pretty sweet system. Which the tech for that, super exciting for me, because it enabled me to actually deliver on a form of transmogrification for mounts.
I just love the name. I love the word transmogrification. I always have. So, okay, do you want to explain that? Is that on our list to talk about?
Yeah, it is. We actually have a piece of art to talk about it too.
All right.
Basically, if your account is entitled to a mount, i.e., you got it from a package, or you went and purchased it like the spider mount from the store, you get one mount figurine of that type, and your account now forever has a recipe in the recipe book, and you can use it anywhere. You don't need a crafting station to do that. Called under backer rewards, and under mount transmogrification, you would see spider transmogrify, and you can load out either a purple or a standard mount in there. You just go to a vendor and buy it, or there are lootable swift ones in the world of any kind. You put it in there, you hit the combine button, and it turns it into the spider appearance. And that is, I was really pleased with that. I was able to do this, and it definitely helps us check one of those reward boxes off for stuff we're building for.
Sure, because I mean, eventually, right, we want to have a skin system. It's just that skins is purely cosmetic, and so it constantly takes a backseat to all the things that we need for gameplay. And so this gave you a way to basically fulfill that promise and give people the equivalent of a skin in advance of having a skin system. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And there's new mounts coming in 6400. I saw some new stuff got checked in yesterday. And I believe WCU is going to be adding it to the store within the next week. I want to say there was a wolf in there and some other fun things.
Cool.
But yeah, it's just know where that is. You can pop open your crafting book anywhere and just build it anywhere. You don't need a station. I made it as pleasant a possible experience for everyone. So there you go. Bind a statue. We already mentioned that one.
Mm-hmm.
Conquest point rewards and campaign scoring. I don't know if we hit on this one.
We really didn't actually. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because we didn't talk about it much at all last time. So okay, so you guys have been with us for a long time, are going to know a lot of this backstory, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So just bear with me for the people that weren't around for it. So originally, when the campaigns went up, we started with basically only one metric for winning a campaign, and that was conquest points. And conquest points you get by capturing locations. And then we actually had a bonus pool set up so that if I captured a location from Blair, I got a bunch of bonus points for doing it. When alliances came online, we had to flip that. So instead of being a bonus for me, it's a penalty to him because otherwise it was exploitable. And then after we added the divine favor, the victory cards, we shifted over to glory, wealth, and power being 3 different win vectors, and conquest points really was the primary driver underneath the third of those, which was power. So what we found was the victory card stuff is actually really cool. And the reason it works so well for guilds is because it gives you different types of activities you can go after. So it's not just the same one note thing every time you log in. The downside of it, though, is that the winning condition being based on winning all 3 of those meant that they all became mandatory as opposed to them being optional. So I may log in and go, hey, I'm interested in the power one because I love conquest, and I'm interested in wealth because we're building our city anyway, and that's pretty cool. But I'm not interested in this glory one because it actually has to do with sacrificing a thing that I don't want to have to go and do. There's too much PvE, or there's too much harvesting, or there's too much fighting spiders, or whatever. So I don't really want to do that one. But you kind of have to if you want to actually win the campaign. So what I tried to do in this last round of thinking is I tried to re-swizzle the exact same pieces we already had, but make it to where the glory, wealth, and power are alternative, optional, I can choose to do or not. Where the territory capture game, which is really the heart of what our vision is, that is not optional anymore. So we kind of flipped it back around. So conquest points now are once again what are used to determine the major winner of the campaign. Glory, wealth, and power are all secondary vectors that all have a deep tree of reward bundles associated with them, so that it gives people, you still have basically those activities. We still have the things that we can log in and choose to do or not. But if I choose not to do this particular wealth one, it doesn't mean that I can't still win the game. So I think it's a better way of using the same pieces that we already had. It does mean that we're going to have to go back and do some of the cards don't make as much sense now. So we're going to have to go back and do some balancing there. We've done some of that in this version. More of that will be coming in the next version. But I think it's going to end up being overall a stronger system because it puts the focus back on territory capture as the primary activity, but it keeps all these other activities, which almost work like, zone or worldwide global guild quest, right? Or guild events. You could almost think of them that way. And my goal there is actually, even if I'm not going to win the campaign, because there are times when there's just a runaway winner and I can't keep up, the goal is to keep people playing. We want people to stay in the world. We don't want them to bail out, because if they bail out in the middle of fall, well, we still have a third or a quarter of the campaign to go, and we want it to be fun. So giving them, things that they can still do to make progress on and get significant rewards out of, and ways to kind of chalk up their own badges and trophies, even if they didn't win, that's actually really important. So I think it's going to end up at a much better place. But that's the reason for this change, and that's also in this build.
Yeah, and we can bring back some of those other cards that there are people who find banging on rocks a lot of fun, and
Yeah, that's true. It also means that because the cards are less necessary, they're not critical to winning. We can mix in ones that are more interesting and varied. Like, for example, we had landless cards, right? So a landless card basically is a card that you can only get you can only achieve the score if you start the beginning of that season without owning a keep or owning a fort or owning any land. So um, the downside of that obviously is it's cool if you're landless. If you're not landless, it's not very cool because it basically means that card is completely cut off from you. So this solves that problem largely. So now we can be a little bit more liberal and flexible about putting those things in the game because they affect your rewards and what rewards you get at the end, but they're not going to determine. It means that the winner of the campaign is not left as much up to RNG, and I think that's actually really critical and important. So I think this was it is a big move, but I think it was a good one.
Okay. Holy crap! The hour's flying by, so I'm gonna
For sure.
We still have questions to answer, so I'm gonna zip through the next one. New powers were added to the talent trees. We've got 6 new powers and 16 powers brought over from disciplines into the talent trees because we can move things around. Let's see, clerics got righteous damnation. Oh my, they got a power called congregation. Who got recon? Where's that recon? Recon is now available to both Assassin and the Duelist talent trees. Black Ice is a new Frostweaver talent. And then we had, in addition to that, we had a balance pass over the War Tribe and crafted items to make them more easy come, easy go. We shifted some stats out of there. We also shifted some stats off of the crafted lower end stuff. And the respec NPC was in our testing, in the designer testing area. I didn't get to see if they finally got the interact on him working yesterday.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I've heard good things, but I have not actually seen it in the game yet. So it doesn't exist yet until I see it on somebody's machine. I guess in this case mine, because I'm not going to the office.
I haven't actually been able to click on him and make him pop up any options to tell me to respec, but the code is there in theory, and as soon as the interact is working, VIPs will be able to use their respec option at that NPC. So he will be located in the temples when he is up and working. Also, you should be able to get your decap 4 rewards. I remember hooking some of that stuff up in this milestone. So if you can't, please tell us that.
Oh, white vessel vendor. So we did add a vendor into the infected temples that will sell you a white about as bad as you can get vessel. It literally every stat is a +1. The purpose of that is to train people on how vessels work, so that then they get the idea and they get used to it, and then they can go and engage with crafters. But we didn't want there to be a gap where players hit the end, they're waiting, and now because nobody happens to be on or happens to be available or nobody is selling a white vendor, they literally can't move forward. So that still could happen, but we punted it forward till after they've learned the mechanics. So that came in this version as well. I saw that vendor was in also. And I will say, in general, I think the vessel transformation change is significantly better. I think it's just so much cleaner.
Yeah, we really haven't seen a lot of feedback on that because, like I said, players are able to bypass that whole thing right now via the leveling dust that's on the test vendors.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So also we haven't brought up a dregs yet, which means that they would be level locked to 31 because the content doesn't exist in the infected.
Now, I guess we should give warning to the people who've been around for a while is you will notice that the vessel numbers have come down. The reason the numbers came down is because the attribute benefits went up. So even if you're getting now less actual points of constitution from your vessel, the health that you're going to get out of that constitution has gone up. So so don't freak out when your vessels look like they're actually worse. In fact, they're kind of better. I think on the whole, the balance number for vessels did get a little bit juicier. We tried not to go crazy with it though, because we still are trying to have diminishing returns.
Okay. And there's a reminder in here that beta buddy codes from December have been extended. If you're sitting on a buddy code that was never activated, It's been extended to offer access to Crowfall beta playtesting through February 15th. If you gave out the codes in December that were activated, those codes now have access through February 15th. Why don't we just say they're all activated through February 15th? Hey, you got February 15th, everybody. There you go. Update 6.5 and beyond, that's the next stuff. Reminder for new beta test players, we appreciate your support in beta. The feedback always is critical. We read those posts. I make changes based on those posts all the time. And it's much appreciated. Let's see. And last, we saw a ton of amazing videos released after the castle went live. Yeah, you know what? I did see a bunch of cool.
There was some really cool, really cool videos.
Yeah, so keep those coming. Tweet out on our Twitter when you post the video war story, and we definitely look at them because we like seeing what you guys are doing with everything we're giving to you.
Yeah, and I will say, we clearly watching those videos, we've had some good news on the FPS front. We're not done yet, right? When Unity came in at the tail end of last year, I say came in, they were really remote, but COVID. But when Unity was helping us, we got a laundry list of like 50 things that we could go do that would have impact. It was no silver bullet of like, hey, do this one thing and you're going to see a giant frame rate jump. It was a whole bunch of things that will add up to a nice significant jump forward. So we've got a chunk of those in now, and you can see it in 6400. It definitely was another big step forward. The castle is performing better than it would have in the previous build by far. You've got a lot of players who are showing up in some of those videos, which is really cool. That said, we're not done with that list, so we do have more cool things coming. In fact, there's even a few that are coming in this build and the next build that I know should also be impactful. So I know that every time we have one of these chats, somebody in the chat is like, hey, give us an update on the optimization. So there you go. Good improvements in this one and more improvements coming.
And someone in chat said the couple that slays together stays together.
It's nice. Okay, that's good.
There's some low-hanging fruit from you. All right. So question from the partners forums. So first question, how does bad luck protection work? So in was it 6200 we added in the discipline portion of the for crafting. Whenever you craft an item, you have a chance for a discipline of that profession to also be granted to you. Now, it is purely based on RNG, which means that unfortunately, if you flip a coin 100 times, it could end up going predominantly one way versus your ideal in your head of a 50-50 split. That's not how numbers work. That's not how RNG systems work. So what we tried to do is create a way to smooth out the experience. And mechanically on the back end, every time you don't get a proc, we add another percentage
handicap
to the
effectively,
next
right? It's a handicap system. It's the whole goal is to combat streakiness, because streakiness in RNG systems is a real issue. It's the biggest problem with them, in my opinion. Is there's you literally can have a bad run that lasts forever, and it's infuriating. So the handicap system basically accounts for that. It says, okay, so every time you get a fail, we're going to increase your chance next time a little bit until eventually you're not going to get a fail. And we've part of the issue also is making sure that information persists right between sessions, because otherwise you could log out, log back in, and you start over, and that sucks. You could end up with a streak that continues. So I think we even took care of that problem as well, right?
Yeah, we took care of the persistence as well, because I was like, yeah, this would suck if I had to log out to another character to grab something and came back in and my protection was reset. So it should persist. In the current version going up on test right now, the data should be in there. What you had on the build from last week was only the code side of it. So it really didn't know what to do. So I saw Galvia doing a test of let's make a bazillion weapons to see how this works out. And it wouldn't produce any results till Bill flips the server live. So the build going to test, you guys should be able to test it out.
So the good news is you now have a test case to test against.
Right.
So if there are issues and you don't see it, then please let us know, because that means now something is broken, either mistaking the data or mistaking the code. So you should be able to test it with this new version that's going up right now, and hopefully it will be a lot better.
Somebody in chat just asked, do they see a buff whenever this is applied? No, this is just silently applied. It should just feel every now and then, like you get a discipline, and it shouldn't be unreasonable. So there is no visualization. Okay. Next question. How does the 100% loot protection work? And this is basically a stat that we have now that design can set up for whatever we want to, and we can flag a category of items to listen to that stat when you die. Normally, when you die, things are transferred from your inventory to the loot cairn. Now, what would happen is if we flag something, it will see if you have a protection stat and do a die roll on that item before transferring it. If it makes the roll, you keep it. If it fails, it would put it in the loot card.
And talk about stacks real quick too, because stacks are a unique and interesting case. So there were a lot of questions about that. So let's clear that up as well.
Right. So if you have a stack of 200 items, it actually rolls for each of those items individually. So you could have 180 of those items go into the loot cairn, and you would keep 20 of them because they just made or didn't make their roll. So it does roll individually on everything in the stack, and it iterates through the inventory or anything flagged as transfer to the cairn. I mean, certain items are excluded already, right? Like the mounts or whatever are considered no drop, but it does it individually. So that should clear up. I mean, the big question I had was stacks, and we can tune it to whatever we wanted to. This is our first whack at it. We want to see what our current values come out at and what you guys think about them.
Yeah. So okay. So let's talk a little bit about that because I know it was a hot button. So this is this whole idea of let's drop some equipped items as loot when I die. We finally got the rules manager set up, right? We finally got a way that we can actually go into data and adjust that. And it's actually all knobs now. It's not a hard and fast rule. Is we can set on an item by item type basis, we can set the percent chance something will drop. And then on the world by world basis, we can adjust it. So we can say, hey, I want on dregs, I want 100% chance of all equipment dropping. But then based on some other rule, I can adjust that. I can modify that down 50% or up 50%. I could say that on infected, it's 150% chance that you will hold on to everything. However, we're going to modify that for some reason based on some power or some adjective or something on my character. So we actually have the control to be able to do it. So now that we finally got this control, the first thing we wanted to do was like actually test it out. Like we wanted to see, okay, does this system actually work? So the easiest way to do that was on dregs to go ahead and rig up a rule. And when looking for what rule to try, we went all the way back to Kickstarter. And one of the examples that we gave on Kickstarter of a rule set in dregs said 100% chance of inventory drop and 20% chance of equipped item drop. So we went ahead and put that one in so we could try it out and see how it works. Now that said, I've heard a lot of people who have pushed back and said, well, actually, it's kind of been both. I've had some people who've been like, actually, I think that's totally fine because we like having some risk. And I've had a lot of people saying, actually, I don't really like it because in a siege situation, it means that I'll make a couple forays in, but then I'll decide not to keep fighting because I don't want, to lose the items or it's going to be too hard to get them back. So this is, of course, tied to some balance changes we've made with Ward Tribe and crafting and stuff like that to also try and make items more easy come and easy go. So there's a little bit more churn. But ultimately, this wasn't a statement of, hey, going forward, all dregs are going to have this rule set. This was our attempt to try out this rule set and see how it feels. Our hope is that once we're up and running, we will have multiple. Our hope has always been that we'll have multiple worlds, and the more players we get in, the more worlds we'll be able to run at the same time. So if we want to have some dregs worlds that are higher risk and do have some loot drop on death, great, that'd be awesome. If there's enough players who want to play that, then we'll put that in. And because there's higher risk, we will also make sure that those campaigns have a little higher reward. I'm happy to move it back. I mean, it literally would be a trivial change for us to move it back to inventory loss and no equipment loss on drop on death. Not a problem. So ultimately, you guys let us know, and wherever the community as a whole seems to be leaning, we'll set it that way. I mean, I don't personally care. Like, it doesn't bother me if enough people decide that they want it one way versus the other. That sounds great. I just want on this one, I want you guys to I want as much engagement in the world as we can get. That's really what it comes down to. This is one that we said in Kickstarter we would try out, so seemed like a good time to try it out. Ultimately, though, if you guys decide you don't want it, then we tried it out, didn't work, and we'll go with what you prefer. So the good news is we have the capacity now to change it very, very easily. So I think that's the biggest overriding message here is we finally got another feature that we as designers really wanted to be able to adjust these. The siege schedule is another one that we got in this milestone, right? Is we now have the ability to external from previously the siege schedule was kind of baked into the map of the campaign. We now have the ability to actually modify it external to the campaign, which is going to be really helpful for things like daylight savings time, which every time that would happen, it would send our siege schedule into convulsions. So luckily, we're hitting that point in the project now where we're getting more control for design to be able to control these things in real time. So
yeah, and things are infinitely easier for us to change once design actually has control over it.
Yep, for sure.
Right. It's much easier for someone to pitch something and us to actually consider it if we don't have to pay the upfront tech cost to even get that thing, right? Because then it's just an experiment where we can flip a knob on a specific campaign and see how it works, which ultimately is where we wanted to go anyways. Okay, question 4. Can we have a quicker way to purchase sell from vendors? This has been a long one, and I bring it up again because yes,
you can.
Yes, you can. Control right click when selling and buying. Once again, one of those nice quality of life things. You can totally have that, and now you do. There you go.
That one actually is explained in the game. At the bottom of the vendor, underneath the grid, there was a little line that said drag or left, or right click to. Now it actually says or control plus right click to do it to quick sell or instant sell or instant buy. So that one actually is explained in the game, which is great for us because we usually get to that last.
Okay, we have a couple of the community questions that Tiggs normally handles, and we only have time for a couple of them.
Okay. So, Love Muffins, when it comes to siege windows, would it be possible to add an effect to the map like explosions, swords clanging, to indicate the specific keep fort outpost is under attack?
That actually is in. So we've got that in now in this version. So there's like a light effect, a smoke effect, and an on fire effect. And I believe it's those three. There's one that basically is, hey, this location is about to go live. There's one that says this location is now live, which I think is the smoke, and this location is live, and there's active fighting going on there, which means it's on fire. I might be a little off on the details of that, but I have seen that went into this version. I believe I saw it in the current test.
I definitely saw it on the map.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw some bugs in triage on some of them not showing up properly.
So there you go.
All right, from Cirque, are there any plans to have any guild UI systems built into the game client? At the moment, we have to do everything through Crowfall.com.
I know it's really aggravating. So I definitely want to do it. It's something that clearly we need to have. The problem is, it's just like what I was talking about earlier. Is it's hard when you have a situation where it's like, all right, well, this isn't the best thing. Like this isn't the best interface to do a thing because I want to have to go to the website. I don't want to have to go to the website to do it. However, I have to choose between make that thing better or add this thing over here like bind a statue that we just need that we don't have at all. Generally speaking, we go with the thing that we don't have at all. So it's a situation where I want to get back to it. It just hasn't quite made it up in priority yet compared to other things that we don't have any solution for. So as we get that list gets smaller and smaller, hopefully more of those things, guilds is one, but there's other ones as well. More of those things will start to float up to the top and we'll be able to actually say, yeah, let's spend some time on that. So it's not the best answer, I realize, but that is actually the case. When we sit around and argue about who's going to work on what in our big priority and triage meetings, inevitably somebody will raise the argument, well, technically they can do it. It's not great, but they can do it on the web. This one, they can't do it all. So guess which one wins?
Alrighty, next one. Will there be some sort of form of master auction house?
we're not planning on a master auction house. We wanted the social ties of people actually going around and visiting EKs and doing their shopping there, going to player vendors and making those social connections. What I think Raf Koster calls light touch social connections, which is, it's not. I mean, you're not in my guild. I don't play with you all the time, but I interact with you every now and then because you're the guy that I go to buy new weapons. So we do want that, and an auction house, while it's very convenient, it does kind of snip those ties. Right now, we're not getting the loop from the EKs that we want to see, though we'll start to see more of that, I think, with 6400, because some of those big glaring EK issues have finally been fixed. For example, concurrency in the EKs historically was just capped at a certain number, and there was no way for players to adjust it. A couple times in customer service, we'd go in and manually set the cap to be higher to let people do practice tournaments and stuff like that. Now they have control. The size of the largest parcel that you have installed on your EK will increase your peak concurrency. So if I want more people to be able to log in, I can go and acquire or get a better parcel, build a better parcel in the game, and I can install in my EK and my concurrency goes up. So some of those things that we've waited on a long time are finally coming in this version as well. So we'll see if that has a good impact at starting EKs to trigger and fire. They don't shut down, for example, when the last person logs out as quickly. There's a long lead time or a longer lead time before they should spin down. So hopefully we'll start to see that to engage. But it's a long-winded answer, but it's because it's actually important for us, is we want the EKs to fire, and historically they just haven't quite been to the point where they can. And I'd like to see with this new version if we get a little closer to that.
Alrighty, Communist Puppy. As it stands now, you cannot buy all of the combat disciplines in-game in GR. This means you hit level 18 now as a new player and think, Blair, I can't see the words, and think that there are only like 4 to 5 discs you could pick, when in fact there are many more. You have to go to Infected to find them. Many new players have asked where you can find X or Y because the system is confusing. Is this intended, or do you plan to make it so that all combat discs can be bought in GR?
That's a good question. I don't know. This is always a puzzle, right? Is how much do you, because players can get overwhelmed if you provide them with too many options at once, right?
Yep.
Like if we dump the entire game on somebody's head, like go into the Crowpedia and open it up, and you'll immediately be struck by how many combinations there are. That's a little overwhelming. So I think the idea was give them a few, and then when they get to Infected, the world kind of that part of the game will blossom open to them. It will open up, and you'll see that there's a lot more avenues. I think my gut would be to leave it that way, with a limited number in GR and then a larger number in Infected. The good news is they haven't made a permanent decision that they can't undo by the time they figure out that they chose one and there's another option over here that's better. It's not like they've worked themselves into a corner, right? They can just say, oh, cool, a new option. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade right now. They also haven't been in a situation where, coming from GR to Infected, where they've been in a competitive PvP situation, unless they're a crazy person.
Right.
I don't think they could have, actually, with
Yeah.
the new flow. So I think it should be okay. We'll see. I mean, ultimately, if it's too limiting, we can very easily add them to those vendors. But I think in this one, to answer the question, was it intentional or not? I think it was.
It was intentional.
I
Yeah.
believe it was, and I can imagine the reason behind it, and I think that reason is still sound.
Yeah, and I can imagine the reason that you're imagining, and I think your imagination is correct in this
I
one.
think is correct. My
Yeah.
conjecture about the imagination of the reasoning, I believe, is the correct hypothesis for the, yeah. There you go.
It's all a figment of your imagination.
There you go, Your Honor. Yeah, it's definitely exactly what you're imagining, and we just didn't want to overwhelm people, so we pared the list back and made a special version for God's Reach. And now that they cap out at 18 in there, anyways, they're going to be going into the Infected, right?
Yeah.
So
I will say we really made a concerted effort in this build to clean up the flow. Like, it's because before it was like, all right, well, I'm level blank. Where should I be? Where's the player going to be? And the answer before was kind of like, well, they might be here, or they could be over here, or they might. Now we actually know, like, hey, if you're this level, this is where we expect you to be. And if you're not there, then that's an issue with the design, and it's something that we need to go and fix.
yeah, you should have heard Gordon's groans over the drop off basically at 18 in the previous versions of the NPE experience. It was just it was just abysmal from that point where the quest kind of let you off and you like figure it out.
For sure. Yeah, so and
Right.
we'll have to test that. There is a bridge quest now that the Sentinel at the end of God's Reach sends you to the infected to talk to one of the 3 Sentinels there. So this is the first time you get to go into a faction. We actually removed the faction selection and just pick one for you. It lets us balance load players a little easier between the 3. Though we did have a suggestion that came up last week, which was, hey, that's fine if you're going to shove me into one, but don't move me into a different one than my guildmates are in, which is great, actually. That's a great piece of feedback. I think Mir Luna actually suggested we just use the same rule that we do for dregs. So we're going to do that is now we're going to, if you're in a guild, we'll default you into the temple based on your patron god choice. If you're not in a guild, then we'll balance load you randomly. And we have the 3 banners in there. So if you get put into one that you don't like, you can go change. But it doesn't matter which one you go to. There's now a quest receiver on the other side that is a bridge quest to get you from God's Reach to Infected. Because it is weird. Like I said, most MMOs don't do that. They don't have a point in their main quest line where they're like, now you need to move to the Great Lakes server. Like that's not a thing usually
Right.
in MMOs.
How do
So
you
it is it's a bit odd, but we're hoping to bridge it now. So we'll see how it goes. We need to get people in, and then we'll look at the metrics and see if that covers the gap, or if not, then maybe we need to figure out some other idea to get people to move from one to the other.
So let's talk about Crow Rewards. If you become a backer by the 24th of the month and receive this month's reward, remember February seems like a very fast month. You receive all of the rewards and the rewards that follow in the months following. All the rewards are added as an entitlement, as I mentioned before in your account. And the February reward is the Savage Hellcat mount. It is, man, I love that thing. That thing is badass looking. All of our Hungerfied monsters look really cool. The Savage Hellcat's a swift mount who has the power of ancient runes guiding his movement and offering a smooth tread to its rider. Treat this dark mount with respect, and it will return the favor as it carries you through the darkest corners of our world.
Love is a battlefield.
Loves Battlefield. Thank you, Debbie Sue. He looks it looks great. Thanks for the pros, and we'll see it get implemented in game for February. And thanks everyone for showing up.
Yep. Thank you very much, guys. As always, we wouldn't be here without you.
Have a great day.